Okay, let's see if this actually starts working with a mixer. And okay, I'm seeing some sliders that indicate that there is some stuff going on with the audio. Uh, all right, maybe this might be a little bit better of an introduction, which I actually need to formally make an intro with maybe some real video capture and some real production. Um, but yeah, just drawing on my lunch break. Figured that I might as well try to use that time, do a quick video, test the equipment, make sure everything's kind of live. I'm hoping so badly that the microphone's catching this. Um, this really isn't to necessarily obviously get an audience. I have I have like 0 subscribers right now, which is kind of amazing to think about that. I've never really used YouTube as a social media platform, although I've um, used it quite a bit just in general, just as sort of like for funsies and for entertainment purposes as a viewer, not as an actual creator, which is kind of odd, I think, because I've been just creating. I create every day. I make drawings every day, and I sort of just never thought of pairing the two together, even though others have done so. So yeah, I plan on hopefully using this as not just an opportunity to draw, but also probably listen to philosophy videos or to, there's a lot of creators out there with sort of thoughtful content. And Lord knows I love thinking about philosophy and spent a long time thinking about theology and politics. And I don't want to be too deep in some of the rhetoric and some of the nastiness that comes with those things. But it would be fun to um, sort of join in a little bit, listen to some of this stuff, which is what I do a lot of times when I draw anyway. So you kind of had like a two-parter for this. So sort of do drawing, um, listen to somebody, you know, maybe work on their drawing process and sort of talk through it, but also, um, build up a community around that. But also sort of like talk about all sorts of other things at the same time. It is I suppose it's a vlog described in drawing terms. I also just think it's a lot more productive. So many people online get into uh, sort of the YouTube and politics space and all that sort of stuff. And they're playing like Nintendo 64 games or Bloodborne. And I'm not saying games aren't a lot of fun. I do love games and I do play games, but I'm also a dad who has limited amounts of time to create, and so I don't think I'm going to probably be doing a lot of gaming on this channel, unfortunately. Even though it's probably if I had a real hard profit motive, I would be doing a lot more of that, probably. But I don't care that much about games, even though I play them with some frequency. I'm not nearly as hooked as I used to be. And the games usually aren't, I don't think, as interesting of a backdrop as creating something unique and new as as well as yeah, it just doesn't. I just don't think it adds anything. It's just sort of there as a wallpaper for all the other stuff that's going on. Whereas if you're interested in art, hey, you can sort of see the process of an artist who's had some success. I'm not by no means famous by any measure, but I have had some success. I've had people asking me more recently for sort of advice on what to do and how to sort of maintain their own arts career. I could certainly cover that here as well. It's definitely a topic I'm interested in, and it's something I reevaluate all the all the time, which is part of the reason why I'm doing this channel right now. Just a little background on like what I'm sort of doing here. I'm doing a skull. uh, it just seemed like a fairly simple and kind of quick thing to do. Draw while I'm doing this. I don't draw a ton of skulls per se. I usually do a quite a lot of figurative art. But skulls are actually pretty enjoyable. They sort of give you a really clear structure of the head. So I sort of see this as usually a little bit of an anatomical study as well. How I'm sort of drawing this is I'm basically drawing it in more of a painterly, you can think of it as perhaps a bit of like a master's kind of approach where I'm working from a bit of a middle ground. My background, get to the purple out. My background color, so could be kind of a darker. Let's just go with like a Van Dyke kind of brown here. Um, then you sort of build up midtones initially to get the structure in. And then you sort of work in the darks and then the lights. Um, and usually when you're doing this oil paint, generally speaking, uh, from just a very practical point of view, the darks tend to dry quicker than the lights do. So if you're trying to be an efficient painter, at least with oil paints, you sort of build up your midtones, sort of an efficient way of working. And then you sort of draw in the darks to really, really land the structure and the format down. And then you kind of build off all the highlights and all the juicy bold colors around that, because those are the things that usually take a while to dry. And if you're like Rembrandt or even like let's say Sargent or your Franz Hals, where you're more painterly with your technique, um, generally speaking, you would sort of go a little extra, sort of add some extra texture touches. You go a little bit more painterly on those sort of strokes. But the same even applies for like Leonardo, who do a million washes. Um, it's just something that's like very lighter and lighter and lighter and lighter with a million different layers that sort of shine throughout. I'm not sure exactly what else to do here or how to compose this. I think I'm going to add like a bit of a foreground. Let's say, I think, kind of the cool thing about working digital is you can get pretty wild. So I'm going to drag the blue. Oops. I'm going to drag the blue into this underlayer. Keep the skull popped. I'm going to sort of make this black backdrop blue. Uh, really, that is very, very blue. And maybe this has more of a pop sensibility now, but I don't know. It's fun to play with the medium and to explore and sort of discover what their capabilities are. Oops, I'm just gonna sort of play with. Come on. Sometimes I have. There we go. Sometimes I have issues trying to figure out what the different tools are doing. And yeah, I also need to. So there's also a whole bunch of other stuff. I've sort of just discovered and started playing with how. Sorry, chair squeaking. Started playing around with software, streaming software, figuring out how to broadcast all this stuff. Not like it's extremely complicated. I sort of had to sort of tell myself, everybody else is able to do this in the world. Um, I see people have debates without webcams and sort of without any sort of decent quality audio. Um, and I could certainly improve those things too. Um, I do not have my main microphone currently set up, but I do have one. Um, and yeah, but yeah, I think it's one of those things where anything, and whenever you're trying anything kind of new, uh, it's good to just sort of get your feet wet, dive into it a little bit. I don't expect a lot of reception for this. I think it's going to be I imagine, a very slow burn, a very slow build, a very slow burn, um, to maybe getting an audience in the future. But yeah, I figured why not just jump into it and really get started. I didn't have a good reason not to, considering, you know, I would be spending this free time on this anyway. I suppose a little bit of extra background on myself. I am not just an artist, although I've had I've had pretty decent gallery experience in the past, especially before being a dad. Showed in Germany, solo shows and group shows pretty frequently. I lived in New York for 12 years, had experiences there as well. Nothing quite as uplifting, I think, as the time spent in Europe that I had. Um, but yeah, I mean, I definitely had some success. Um, I've had both ups and downs in my career, I think, as anybody would. And even if I didn't have essentially any more like sort of gallery success or any of the traditional success, I figured might as well try to create something on my own. And I am happy with what I've been done that whole time. I'm also somewhat um, maybe I guess I sort of go against the grain a little bit compared to a lot of artists because I don't want to necessarily live or eat off my art, at least not not anytime soon. Um, I sort of just like doing whatever weird thing I like to do, and I don't enjoy the idea that I have to sell artwork in order to survive, and that's especially scary now that I have two kids. So I really make my living not off of artwork at all, but, uh, but rather other creative work through design. And so yeah, I'm also a UX designer, and I could certainly maybe even give perhaps better fundamental tips on how to be a successful UX designer than be an artist. Either way is good. But so I sort of jump around quite a bit between the two ways of thinking, and I like art in the sense that you kind of start with some nebulous drive to make something, and sort especially with how I work, because I sort of start off with usually random forms with nothing really in mind. And I kind of build off of it, and I turn the nebulous drive of creating something that's in my head and craft something out of it. But with design, it's kind of the opposite. It's you usually have a pretty specific goal in mind, and it's good to have very clear goals in design around what you want your process to be, what you want your customers or users to do. And then you build solutions that you have clear goals, and then you sort of build the solution out of a sort of abstraction. But the end goal is clear, and everything gets measured and driven towards that end goal. In art, it's kind of a mess. You have some sort of abstract idea around wanting to create a thing, um, and it starts out very abstract. I mean, even if you're a fairly rigid representational painter, I mean, like what I'm doing is very representational, but even here you see how the abstraction is the starting point, and then you sort of mold it into something more and more tangible. You make a more and more tangible illusion. Um, but yeah, in art, like you start out with the abstraction, and then you sort of get something more concrete. Design works the complete inverse way. Any more highlights? But yeah, I am definitely willing to, as hopefully I build a community and more people get to watch me a little bit. I'm really, really happy to encourage for people to reach out, have artist talks. I would love to. One thing I really love to do is critique. Um, I and when I was in art school, I went to art school for painting. When I was in art school, I really, 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 really thought I was going to be a professor, and it was kind of recommended to me from other professors that I really respected that I would be a good teacher, and partly it's because of the critique and the value of critique I would give. Um, so I would love to start building a critique, um, give inputs for people, and build a community around that. Right? Have I can imagine a sort of regular meetup of people getting together, maybe in a Discord, sharing their artwork, talking about it a little bit, writing a little bit about it, and sort of sharing our experiences. That sounds amazing to me. I certainly like meeting artists. I like giving input um, for anyone who's like sort of curious and like wants to develop and build and sort of get a sense of how to make like you know engaging, interesting art or think about things maybe in a different way. Get some input from other artists. I certainly love to do that. I've also considered, and let me know in the comments after this video is posted, because I don't think I'm gonna have any live. I'm not gonna have any live viewers for this, but yeah, I mean, it would also be good. Let me know if you're watching this. You actually get through it. What you might be interested in, because I've also thought about like, oh, would doing like quote unquote art lessons. But honestly, I'm kind of less interested in telling people how to do something. I think that's actually kind of damaging. Then, I could certainly um, give advice on technical skills and how to improve them and work on them. Um, but I think there's probably a lot of resources that are already good for that. I would hope. And if they're not, then I'm happy to provide some insight. But generally speaking, I don't want to limit how people work. And I think so much of art instruction, um, especially online, is very much about how how to do a thing, how to copy a thing, how to make an eyeball, how to draw hair, and how to draw realistic looking eyes. And I could do that, I guess. I could certainly give my input on it, but I don't know. I'm not sure how valuable it is for everybody, or I don't know how valuable it is in like your one's true, unique artistic artistic development. Um, I think copying can be very, very important. Um, I have certainly had those artists that you mold yourself after you sort of copy and you develop, and you do develop certain skills and certain things from it. And there's certainly nothing wrong with what's the word for it? Simulacrum, or it's a much more complex word for it, or derivative. I don't think there's anything wrong with art being derivative, as long as you sort of acknowledge that you're sort of in that place where you're learning, you're trying to figure things out, you're trying on a lot of different hats. I think that's all really actually kind of good. If you want to learn to draw Durer, or if you want to learn to do a print like Goya, like, or if you want to do Avex painting like Clifford Still, like, yeah, go for it. I think that all has a lot of value. Uh, the challenge is, where like where do you go from there? I mean, how do you, as long as you make the process meaningful for you, and you feel like you're learning, I think that's all you can really ask for. Ooh, eraser. You can't see what I'm doing here is I'm sort of trying to define some of the teeth. Honestly, I don't I don't even usually count how many teeth are in a skeleton. I'm ashamed to say that. Oh God, I sort of just you kind of guess. I do love drawing the details of teeth. If you haven't seen any of my artwork, uh, yeah, you'll see a lot of mouths, you'll see a lot of gnashing teeth, a lot of sort of menacing smiles. I love to do. But right now I'm like kind of using the pencil tool. I do find like one thing that just like drew me into the iPad. I think sort of sucked me into like get started using the iPad as a creative tool. Um, was even just in the sort of notes. Going to the Apple Store, testing out notes, seeing how capable it was at sort of mimicking um, the qualities of a pencil and its application, and sort of like using the side of it, using it for different angles, different pressures, sort of looking so um, kind of to me like unbelievably close. Because I'd used Wacom tablets before. Um, I had done a lot of digital drawing in the past, given my time in art school, and I would always just do really really flat drawings because the uh, the quality was like never that of like working on paper or working with the true drawing, the quote unquote true drawing materials. Um, that said, I did have to get over the concepts. Like I love, most of my artwork is still traditionally done in pretty traditional methods. Um, I do like pen and ink, pencil and ink. I usually mix media on paper. I do still love the feeling of working on paper. I do have an iPad cover here that sort of mimics the toothiness of the toothy texture of paper. So I get at least a little bit of resistance, as if it were paper with just a little bit of teeth, like a bit of a vellum surface, I guess. It's not perfect, but boy, it really gets pretty close. It's close enough that I can definitely do pretty believable marks. I'm just sort of trying to draw more details. So I have that base layer. There's those base layers. Sort of just kind of defining the lighting. Right now you kind of see it's all pointed this way, maybe a little bit this way too. There's some secondary highlights that are sort of shining through a little bit. So I tend to get those sometimes where you get those secondary highlights, and that sort of really helps build out the form. It's usually the darkest area. His darkest area is not going to be like right here, for instance, or like right here. Instead, usually what happens is you cast a shadow, and you sort of get these secondary highlights like right here. Yeah, I'm just sort of chipping away at this. Any real purpose. I'm sort of adding some texture here. Again, defining that skull a little bit more. Still too dark. And as far as what I'm using here, I think they were free brushes. I don't know. I bought a bunch of brush sets for Procreate. I'm using Procreate. I bought a bunch of brush sets for Procreate um, like a year or two ago. I sort of go on and off from using iPad, so it might have been 2 years ago. One of them is Sargent. I think they were free, but they do like create this like very, especially with the wet brushes, like this sort of like buttery um, color mixing when you sort of put colors together, as if it's a bit of a wet and wet technique, which Sargent was kind of famous for doing. He had a very efficient shorthand of using his oil paints and sort of putting them together and creating very, very quick and elegant painterly portraits. Scenes similar, I guess, to Degas. I always really absolutely love for his ability to create, these really gorgeous, rich painterly compositions. Um, I believe there's one. It's one of my favorite paintings at the Met. I think it's not super famous in general, but I think Degas like I can't remember if it was man or woman. It was I believe it was man with scarlet ibis, and it was just this portrait with this stunning like, pink bird in the background, and frankly, like the composition's so interesting, like typical of Degas. Not like the dancer so much, but like some of his other people, some of his other work where Um, yeah, the portraiture, the actual portrait is obscured in sort of this secondary darkness. It's not the focal point. It's actually this like flat pink bird that stands out. And it sounds like very silly with how I'm describing it, but compositionally it was for me always a kind of a stunner. The idea of this sort of flatness, this very real feeling flatness, and there's something like dare I say, kind of there's often something pretty melancholy in Degas' work, but for some reason there's something very menacing about this bird. Maybe that's what I was drawn to. When you have something that's bright and pink and not really safe feeling about it. The faces that are in there are kind of like phantoms. They are sort of in some ways reminds you of uh, Stanley Kubrick's The Shining. There's this hotel, with phantoms existing throughout it, sort of ghostly apparitions partying, appearing, disappearing, reappearing, sometimes attractive, sometimes very haunting forms. When I look at some of Degas' work, they feel very much like that. Maybe they didn't feel that way of its time, but to me they feel like ghosts, which most paintings don't feel that way. Most paintings just feel like pleasant periods of their time. Say, art history, look up if you're interested. Millet was actually another painter that had that effect that I used to love, who did scenes of farmers sort of working the field, and usually it was the lighting of them usually was pretty naturalistic, but they always seemed to be working the fields like in the early morning, and their faces were always kind of tamped out. They're sort of always not quite there. Oh, okay, I've been doing this for almost half an hour now. One amazing thing that's great about digital is I'm so impatient with painting in general. Um, I could put a little more time drawing, but you could do a pretty detailed drawing with that, fairly quickly. But I'm fairly impatient with painting, and I tend to screw them up to the point where I just undo everything. So this kind of allows me, these sort of tools allow me to work fairly quickly, work drawings, like paintings, essentially, and redo, undo my mess. I'm not doing a lot of different layers here, as you can tell. Maybe the skull as all one layer. This is generally not how you would construct this. Like how it normally goes. I have sort of the primary uh, neutral tone layer, and then maybe have a dark layer, and build up a light layer on top, which maybe I'll do a bit of a light layer now. But actually, oh, jeez. Yeah, let's put some highlights here. This is really define this area right here. And this I am putting on new layers. So, I mean, layers just allow you a little more flexibility and a little bit more of a safe option of keeping the things that you really love and then adding and building without creating a whole lot of risk or redo. And when you're working digitally, you get to kind of think a little bit more about how you want to structure that. I used to do a lot of I see a lot of that now. I'm doing UX design, but I used to do a lot of visual design, and I used to work for Victoria's Secret. I'd have to do a lot of photo retouching for their marketing materials, and yeah, you got to be very careful. Work with a lot of layers because you got to try to work pretty efficiently. And if you screw up and you got to redo work, you will be behind on their working schedule. And it was awful. Things might be different there now, but I don't know. That was a long time ago, and it was not the most fun job. I'll say that much. Okay, so this is looking okay. I think maybe what I'll do next is I'll just leave the skull alone, or maybe I'm gonna commit. Oops, that's not what I meant to do. Oh boy, 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 boy. Okay, I'm gonna delete this. Okay, unlock it. I'm gonna delete it. I'm gonna commit to this. I'm gonna merge down. I'm just gonna duplicate this whole skull. Take the skull, flip it, even though the lighting doesn't make any sense here. What are you gonna do? Come down a little bit, I think, further. Right. And I'm gonna take skull number one. I think I might even change the background there a little bit. I don't know. Hmm. Interesting. Playing around. It's one actually very nice thing about working in working digitally too. Is I just get to play with all the different ground colors. You get to sort of see what works, what doesn't work. You get to replay, you get to undo. Oh gosh. still gonna need to probably go in and sort of add some paint or add some extra definition behind these skulls. So you could sort of see in the corners and the far edges on the left and right. The skull's kind of peeking through with that new color. It wasn't really obvious when everything was on the neutral background. But now, boy, yeah, it's way more evident. So what I'm going to do here, I'm just going to do a quick, ooh, no, too tiny. I'm going to do a quick, trying to make these two kind of garden buddies here. And, certainly I'm going to rework a lot of this. This needs a, I'm definitely going to tweak and nuance this quite a bit. I don't like the idea of couple bone boys helping to harvest the field, helping to keep this devilish garden intact. And you know what? I'm going to, sorry, I'm just trying to think of how to adjust the canvas. Is there a way to increase the canvas size? I've actually never done this before, which I really need to do this more often. Where you sort of just increase canvas size. Try to do it 4200. If I can get it right. Oh, close. That's fine. Okay. Oh, look at that. I get extra room. Extra room for this fleur de mal to grow. Sorry, pardon my French. I also said that with a very American accent, which I used to be much better in French. So I think I'm going to leave that like this for now. I know I've gotten zero viewers, but I'm going to post this on the YouTube channel just to sort of do an end-to-end on the test, make sure everything went smoothly. And if people want to like and listen, I will be doing these regularly in the future. I do need to set calendar dates. Uh, I would say definitely do do the standard boring like and subscribe and all that good stuff. Um, because I got nothing. I got zero right now. Don't you want to see more skulls? Don't you want to see how the garden grows in this Skulltopia? I know I'm interested in this whole storyline.